Allah Yahweh, by Hashem, Yahweh Shah, Mashiach. All praises, glory, and honor to Yahweh in the name of his son, Yahweh Shah. Fisherman Vigilant, back with another video through the spirit and the power of Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shah. You don't count this as a light thing through the spirit and the power of Yahweh by Hashem, Yahweh Shah. All praises and glory and honor to Yahweh, who the world understands as God. In the name of his son, Yahweh Shah, who the world understands as Jesus the Christ, according to the ancient Paleo Hebrew. Peace and blessing to you. Shabbat Shalom to those keeping Sabbath Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. Lord willing, you're enduring to the best of your ability, forsaking the flesh to the best of your ability, and the cares of this world, forsaking the cares of this world to the best of your ability. All praises, glory, honor to Yahweh in the name of his son, Yahweh Shah. So we're gonna open up with a quick precept. You wanna say something?
Nah, you got it.
Okay, this is the book of Psalms, chapter 122. Peace and blessings and Shabbat Shalom to those, Lord willing, that will tune in. This is Psalms chapter 122, starting at verse 1, and it reads, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord Yahweh. So we should be glad that we continue to do lessons, continue to go in the highways and byways, continue to strive to forsake the flesh and the cares of this world. We should be glad. We should be in this time period right now where all hell is breaking loose in these last days, where we should be glad that all hell is breaking loose. We should be glad that a lot of people that aren't striving to stay in the spirit, and those that aren't in good grace as well as being in the truth, you know, it ain't looking too good. But you knowing that you are Israelite, so-called Black, Hispanics, and Native Americans, you knowing that you striving to keep the commandments and faith and hope in the Lord, you know, you should be glad, you know, even if you're down to your last, you know, even if your back is against the wall, you should be glad. You should be glad that the Lord gave you the mind and the spirit to read and understand the word, as well as continue to grow. You should be glad that you're able to keep the Sabbath. You should be glad that you're able to continue to have your spirit in a position where you can continue to rely on something spiritual instead of carnal things, you know. So like it says, Psalms 122 and verse 1, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord Yahweh. Our feet shall stand within thy gates, O Jerusalem. And the Lord's gonna have his elect feet stand, you know, whomever the elect is. We don't know, but we hoping we of the elect. That's why we understand, we say the hope for the elect. You know, you should be in the spirit of being glad in these last days, because there's many things that the wicked is glad about. You know, a lot of times the wicked, they're glad about temporary pleasure, you know, temporary carnal things, but you should be in the spirit of being glad. As far as, you know, the Lord is looking for obedience. The Lord is looking for, you know, a man and a woman that fears him, that is obedient to his word. You should be in the spirit. That's the spirit you should be in right now. You should be in the spirit of, if you don't, you know, do what the Lord tell you to do, you should be vexed and grieved in the spirit. You should be in the spirit of, I need to get my spirit right. I need to get my mind right. I need to get my household in order. Because our forefathers did that. Let me get this quick precept right quick. And on 1 Kings. This is the book of 1 Kings. It's like a 2 Kings. This is the book of 2 Kings. Let me get chapter 20. 2 Kings chapter 20. And I'm going to start at verse 1, and it reads, in those days was Hezekiah sick unto death, and the prophet Isaiah the son of Amos came to him and said unto him, thus said the Lord Yahweh, set thy house in order, for thou shalt die and not live. So, hey, being in the spirit is glad, you know, that you're able to go in the Lord's house. And the deeper understanding of that, I was glad when they said it to me, let us go into the house of the Lord. Anytime the Lord has a spirit on you, the Lord has the knowledge and the understanding and the wisdom on you, he's dealing with you. You know, anytime the Lord jams you up and you still have the spirit to pray and read and to try to fast and to try to get your household in order, the Lord is dealing with you. So you should be glad regardless of what you're going through in life. You know, like the title says, it says, all hell is about to break loose. Be vigilant. Economy collapse, no jobs, recession. So before we get into the lesson, you got a quick precept you want to pull?
A classic precept of Matthew chapter 24.
Kind of bring it out.
I'm gonna start at I'm gonna get straight to the point that I want to get. Verse 17. let him which is on the housetop not come down to take anything out of his house, neither let him which is in the field return back to take his clothes. So, you know, the Lord prophesied of the lesson that we're about to get into, of what was going to happen in the earth. And it's our duty as the men of God to go out and prophesy these things before they can come to pass. You know, but I yield on that.
And we living in these days where a lot of these prophecies that we was reading and that we've always been reading is coming to pass. We living in these time periods right now where the Lord said, you will be in we're just gonna read it. Let's get Isaiah 46 and 10 real quick. 46 and 10.
We got Isaiah chapter 46 and verse 10. And it reads, declaring the end from the beginning, and from ancient times the things that are most yet done, saying, Salakia, things that are not yet done, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure.
And that's what the Lord got documented. You know, these prophecies that we about to talk about, these things that are going on in the earth. You know, we just read that, you know, ice is all hell is breaking loose with ice. You know, the authorities, you know, I'm gonna just read it real quick. I had a screenshot, you know. So this is what's going on. This is liberal protesters have completely surrounded the ICE Federal Detention Center in Los Angeles, California. So you got a lot of people that are mad with what's going on in the earth. And that's why we titled the lesson, all hell is about to break loose. You know, if it's not dealing with the economy, if it's not dealing with recession, if it's not just dealing with jobs, you know, you always got something going on in the earth. You know, the Lord said his counsel would stand. You know, he would do all his pleasure. You know, the same thing that went on in Egypt, you know, the plagues having to take place so that society can be brought down to free the Israelites. You know, get Exodus 5:1 real quick, Baba Kashah. You know, so that's what we dealing with in these last days. You know, the Lord is saying with all this destruction and hell that's going on, he's saying, let my people go, you know. But a lot of people, they don't have the mind and they not in the spirit to be vigilant and watching.
Book of Exodus chapter 5 verse 1. And afterward Moses and Aaron went in and told Pharaoh, thus saith the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast unto me in the wilderness.
And that feast is coming, you know, very soon, you know. So the Lord is saying, let my people go when all hell is breaking loose. You know, when the economy is about to collapse, the Lord is saying, let my people go. Babylon the Great, the daughter of Babylon. You know, when more diseases are going to be brought on the earth, the Lord is going to be saying spiritually, let my people go. And if you're not vigilant and watching, you're going to be jammed up. You know, you're going to be hand joined with the wicked. You know, you're going to be caught out there. You know, you're going to have your pants down. You're going to be naked if you can spiritually understand and have the spirit of discernment. You know, you're going to be in a position where you're going to be worried about bills and money and clothes and cars and women and what spouse you can put on your roster and, you know, what's the latest things you can get into. That's why the Lord commanded. Let me get this in Luke real quick. The Lord commanded that we be spiritually inclined to understand what's going on in these last days. You know, this is Luke chapter 21. And this is verse 34, and this is red letters. So red letters mean this is what the Messiah said. This is Luke 21 and 34, and it reads, and take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting. That means an oversupply, you know, an overload. You know, man, I ain't got enough money to pay that light bill.
Gluttony.
You know, what's gonna happen? You know, just imagine you thinking about that when a chariot is at your front door. You know, going past your house, you know, and people outside screaming, you know.
Missiles coming through.
Yeah, you got all hell breaking loose, and you stressing about how much longer you can stay in this society, in this rat race. When the Lord is spiritually saying, let my people go. You know, your job is gonna get shut down, you know. No human resources, no jobs available, you know. No stores open, You should be happy when you hear about these things. If you're in the spirit, you know, when you see protesting going on and federal government agencies putting fire truck nozzles on people, you know, throwing tear gas bombs and all hell is breaking loose, you should be glad, you know. I was glad when they said it to me, let us go into the house of the Lord. Because when the Lord say farewell, when the Lord say, well done, my good and faithful servant, hey, that means, hey, you made it. But ain't nobody made it yet. You know, but you got this camp saying they got the 100% truth. You know, you got this camp always talk, every video some congregations do is talking bad about another congregation. You know, you got some congregations, hey, all they do is say about what they got and what they doing. You know, but we should be in a spirit of, you know, warning, you know, getting our houses in order, making sure our spirit right, making sure our spouses right, making sure our children's right, making sure our brothers are straight, you know. So the Lord said in Luke 21:34, and take heed to yourselves, lest at any time your hearts be overcharged with surfeiting and drunkenness. So hey, sometimes you can be drunk, not just off a wine glass or martini or margarita, but sometimes you can be drunk according to these philosophies, you know, according to these doctrines out here, you know, all these lies out here. Sometimes you can be drunk off that too, you know. Sometimes you can be drunk giving into the NBA finals, you know, the PGA tours and the tennis tournaments, you know, who's winning in women's WNBA and women's softball college league,
NBA finals,
you know. Yeah, who's winning in your finals, who's winning in your professional fishing tournaments. You know, you can get drunk and not even have a wine glass or a shot, you know, Douce, Hennessy. You know, sometimes you could be spiritually drunk of what is going on in the land. Bring it up.
This is the book of Acts, chapter 28 and verse 20, going in correlation to what the brother reading in the book of Luke. And it reads, so like I made chapter 20, Acts chapter 28 and verse 20, and it reads, for this cause, so like that's not what I want, 20 and 28. Yeah, 20 and 28. I had it right the first time. Acts chapter 20 and verse 28, it says, take heed therefore unto yourselves and to all the flock over the which the Holy Spirit hath made you overseers, to feed the church of God, which he hath purchased with his own blood. So as men of God, we want to be in this word enough to where we are aware of the signs that are coming to pass that the Lord warned us about in time past, that we won't be overcharged with surfeiting, being drunken with the wine of this world, worrying about unnecessary things that aren't gonna go with us into the afterlife, into the kingdom. Things that are that's gonna perish in this world. Your money, your Bitcoin, you know, your Mercedes-Benz, your AMG, you know, on all types of things that men in this world pursue after, and they make it their life's worthiness to pursue after these things. The Lord said, what shall it profit a man if he gain the world and lose his whole?
Right.
What is it going to profit you in that day when the Lord cracks the sky and you out there in the sun polishing the damn vehicle?
Right.
You know, or you checking your bank account. Hey, I want to be that man in that day, Lord willing, and I'm, you know, shaking the hand.
Right. Or
doing something pertaining to the ministry of the Most High, fulfilling the law, you know, walking in the commandments, not out here just walking according to my own fleshly desires. I want my mind to be ready to receive the Lord. I want my spirit to be ready to receive the Lord. You know, some brothers, you've asked them today, you ask the brother, are you ready to see the Lord?
Right.
You know, are you ready for the Lord to come back? And the brother will tell you, yeah, I am. Right. You know, but hey, I ain't ready for the Lord yet, because I know I'm not perfect yet. You know, I have the spirit of David right now. I want to be perfect in the eyes of the Lord. I want the Lord to acknowledge me and say, that's my son right there.
Right.
You know, but, you know, we are charged with the duty of overseeing the church. So we have a duty and a calling as a men of God to minister to our people, so that they hopefully may have right to the tree of life.
Right.
But I yield to the spirit.
The Lord said in Amos 5 and 18 said, what is that day? What is that day to you? What the brother just said. Let me get that real quick. You know, cause hey, he was just confessing. You know, a lot of people they can't say that. They're gonna be over righteous. They're gonna say, you know, I'm ready for the day of the Lord. You know, I'm on fire. I'm diligent. You know, I'm gonna make it. A lot of people can't say that. You know, they're gonna be caught up in that day. You know, and there was another man in the New Testament. He said it was a Pharisee. He said, Lord, I think that I'm not like this man. I fast twice a week. You know, I give alms. You know, and then you got another man in the scriptures. You know, in that same verse, he said, I would not dare lift up my head. You know, so the Lord said one man left justified and another man left, you know, humble. So that's what the Lord is looking for. He's looking for a humble spirit as well. Now this is Amos chapter 5 verse 18, and it reads, it says, woe to you that desire the day of the Lord. To what end is it for you? The day of the Lord is darkness and not light. And that day of the Lord, that's when all your works is going to be brought to the front. You know, all your secrets. You know, you trying to hide on camera that you're mighty and you're holy, you're righteous, holier than thou spirits. You know, you doing everything in the public eye, but what nobody can't see, the Lord is gonna bring that to the front too. You know, so hey, when all hell really break loose, you know, that's when, like the scriptures say, then you shall know who the Lord elect is, who the Lord is dealing with. You know, then you gonna know in that day that he endured, she endured. What they really was talking, they really about that. You know, Moses was really about that. King David was really about that. You know, John the Baptist was really about that. You know, just imagine you about to get your head chopped off and your last thoughts and what your last words are gonna be. You know, a lot of people would double back, man. You know, I didn't mean to say that. You know, I was just playing. I was just saying, you know, I really only say that because Yahushua had me say that. You know, I was out there baptizing people. A lot of people would double back. You know, some brother or sister gonna say, you know, I really don't wear them fringes. They forced me to do that. You know, they said they was gonna shoot me if I didn't put these fringes on. Man. You know, the only reason why I go to camp is because the church made me to. They was paying my light bill. They paid my mortgage a couple times. That's the only reason why I'm really not an Israelite. A lot of people gonna be doing that in those times. They're gonna be doubling back. You know, so you gotta ask yourself, what is that day to you? What is that day gonna be like to you? You know, a lot of people gonna be coming up with excuses in these last days. Well, I didn't go to camp because I had to do this. Like, I couldn't keep the feast day because I had to do this. You know, it's not really about your camp leader. It's not really about your elder. It's about you working out your own salvation. That's what it's about. You gotta ask yourself, what is being an Israelite? What is that really to you? You know, you losing your job. You know, all hell breaking loose. You know, and like the title say, you know, a lot of this stuff is gonna come due to robots. You know, this AI that they bringing in. You know, because when you really look at the etymology and the definition of recession, it's things that the government is planning. You know, the cat is out of the bag. There's no secret. The Georgia Guidestones tell you. You know, they want to reduce population. You know, your local job that you go to, they trying to take the workers out of there. What is that for? Artificial intelligence. You know, you see it. They trying to make all type of things to bring in this new world order. If you've never heard or known about it, go back and look at if they still got it. They may not still got it, but I remember being in middle school. You know, the Most High had my spirit on another level. I remember looking at conspiracy theories, videos. I remember seeing George Bush Sr. himself talk about the New World Order, the NWO, you know, the one world government, the one world currency, the one world religion. You know, stop thinking everything is going to be normal. It's going to be okay. Okay, we kind of got past COVID. What's next? You know, we kind of got past those boosters, those shots. I don't even know if I can say this. It might jam the channel up. You know, but it's the spirit the Most High got us in. So what's next? You know, you see it. You know, Trump is in office. You see what he's doing. You know, having these meetings. Who's he? What is these meetings that he's having with these world leaders? What is that? What is this about? You know, sometimes you got to turn off that ESPN, Sometimes you got to turn those TikToks off, and you really got to be vigilant out here, you know. So I'm gonna read it real quick because I had some precepts that I want to get. Now this is 1 Peter chapter 5, and I'm gonna start at verse 8, and it reads. It says, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary, the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about, seeking whom he may devour." So a lot of people, they not sober, you know. They really just into religion so deep that you can't tell them nothing. You can't give them no verse in the Bible. All they want to hold on is to John 3:16, the Gentiles, Cornelius, you know, salvation is for everybody. So a lot of people, they not sober, you know. They really not in the spirit to be born again.
Drunk,
you know. They just toss to and fro, you know. When the Lord commanded and taught us that what we was learning and taught from the beginning, don't let nothing take that away. You know. Verse 9, 1 Peter 5:9. "Whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world." So our forefathers, they got jammed up. You know. Don't think that Abraham had to just walk around not knowing where he was going for no reason. Romans 15:4 says the scriptures was written for your learning. You might not know what your time gonna be like next month, you know, or even if myself and this brother, we lose our job.
Okay.
Abraham won't just out there walking around not knowing. Hope the Lord us. We hope the Lord deliver us. You know, stop thinking the Israelites just something that we just playing this out. You know, this ain't playing. You know, we contending for the faith. We don't know what tomorrow gonna be like. We don't know what the night was gonna be when we went on the highways and byways. We don't know if somebody was coming out there ready to shoot us. You know, just closed out camp. Somebody might be walking behind us, ready to stab us, cut our necks, slit our throats. You know, we didn't sign up for attention, fame, glory. You know, we trying to glorify the Lord. We don't know what the next day gonna be like. So that's what the apostles are saying. 1 Peter 5:9. "Whom resist steadfast in the faith, knowing that the same afflictions are accomplished in your brethren that are in the world. But the God most high of all grace, who has called us unto his eternal glory by Hamashiach Yahushua, after that ye have suffered a while." So hey, sometimes you gotta suffer, you know. "After that ye have suffered a while, make you perfect, establish, strengthen, settle you." So the Lord, he wants to increase us, you know, but you want to stay in the same old ways. That's what our forefathers were dealing with, you know, wanting to go back to Egypt, stay in the same ways when Moses was set up to come and free them out. You know, you got something?
What I had slipped my mind.
It's all good.
Oh yeah, what I was gonna say through the spirit a little while back was I was just gonna add this. Brothers be praying that the Lord speed up the times for the elect's sake, but in the same breath, you know, the spirit came over me. The brothers gotta also pray that our spirits be prepared to receive the Lord in that day as well.
God.
Because brothers praying for the times to be sped up, not knowing that our spirit may not be right in that day for the Lord to receive us and for us to inherit eternal life. So we got to balance that out and ask the Lord to prepare our mind to receive him, to prepare our spirit to receive knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, to receive righteousness, so that the Most High can have mercy on us and receive us in that day for all the transgressions that we committed in this place. Because, you know, we all know, well, all of us don't know, but brothers that's in this truth and that's been in this truth know that this place is coming to an end.
Right.
All hell is breaking loose. You got nation against nation. You got best friend against best friend. You know, through the spirit out, that was a precept that I was gonna pull in the book of 2 Ezra chapter 6. You know, that friend will make war with friends through the spirit. I'm gonna read it real quick.
Bring it out.
I don't want to just quote it. I'm gonna read it through the spirit. This 2 Ezra chapter 6. This whole thing is good, but I'm gonna start at verse. I have wrote it down in my notes. Salakia. 6 and 16. We'll start at verse 16. It says, and why? Because the speech of these things trembleth and is moved, for it knows that the end of these things must be changed. And it happened that when I had heard it, I stood up upon my feet and hearkened, and behold, there was a voice that spake, and the sound of it was like the sound of many waters. So he heard the Lord speaking to him. God. And it said, behold, the days come that I will begin to draw nigh and to visit them that dwell upon the earth. So the Lord is making an inquisition for man on the earth. And he's inquiring at the deeds of man and what man is doing. Right? And it says, verse 19, and I will begin to make inquisition of them, what they be that have hurt unjustly with their unrighteousness. And when the affliction of Zion shall be fulfilled. So the Lord is taking an account of these things that these other nations have done to his people. Right? And he's inquiring at their hand. And that's why all hell is starting to break loose in America. Right. Right? And with BRICS, with Russia, and so on and so forth. Right? Verse 20, it says, and when the world that shall begin to vanish away shall be finished, then will I show these tokens. The book shall be opened before the firmament, and they shall see all together. And the children of a year old shall speak with their voices. The women with child shall bring forth untimely children of 3 or 4 months old, and they shall live and be raised up. And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown. The full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. And I had a Jake tell me the other day that one of these big shopping markets they fully closed down, just up and closed. Right? And that's the Lord prophesying these things to come to pass. The Lord said that full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. And they had everything marked 50% off. See that? Right? And 100% off. They were trying to get everything up out of there. You know? It says, and the trumpet shall give a sound, when every man heareth, they shall be suddenly afraid. At that time shall friends fight one against another like enemies, and the earth shall stand in fear with those that dwell therein. The springs of the fountain shall stand still, and in 3 hours they shall not run. So these things are gonna happen, you know. And as we're prophesying these things, the downfall of these other nations, you know, the Lord is gonna make these things come to pass through the Spirit. But I yield.
Con, that's right. You know, and the prophets, they didn't speak about this just for, you know, taking up time, taking up days of their life. You know, the Lord spoke, you know, the precept that you like to quote a lot, is it in Amos? When a prophet speak, it's for the downfall.
76.
Come on, bring that up.
You talking what I was just quoting?
Nah, it's paraphrasing. Before the kingdom fall, the Most High spoke by the prophets.
Con, it's Amos chapter 3 and verse 7. It says, surely the Lord Yahweh will do nothing, but he revealeth his secret unto his servants, the prophets.
So when the Lord do something, he already spoke what he was going to do. It wasn't just out of the blue. You know, it wasn't just a last minute thing. Oh man, I want to destroy America. Let's do it. Boom. Next thing you know, all hell done broke loose. No, the Lord spoke about these things that's coming to pass. You know, and one thing for sure, you know, you got the AI coming out, full-fledged, artificial intelligence. You know, they can make a whole new me and just have me out there committing crimes. Right. But the whole time I'm at the house reading the Bible. God, you know, they can have your wife out there shaking and twerking at the club, and the whole time she at the grocery store getting stuff for the Sabbath. You know, and next thing you know, you're like, what is going on? You know, it's so much wickedness and evil they can do with this AI. You know, and not just only the AI, they're gonna be taking away people's jobs. They're gonna be bringing in robots. You know, and all of this is gonna come to fruition of Esau kingdom being brought down. Let me get that real quick. This is Mark chapter 3. Cause really, you got the heathen going against the heathen. You know, just the other day, you know, something went on with Donald Trump and Elon Musk. You know, one minute they was cool. He was vouching for him, telling people to vote for him. Next thing you know, all hell just breaking loose. You know, he didn't pass a certain bill that he wanted to get passed, as if he was really gonna be in Donald Trump's seat. You know, hey, don't nobody care that you a billionaire. You know, that you trying to bring in a Neuralink, that you trying to tap into people's mind and trying to get some outer space world going on, some technology that never been on the earth to be able to brought into your nearest corporation. Don't nobody care about your cyber trucks. You know, really the Lord is controlling their spirit. Now this is what the Lord is saying. This is Mark chapter 3. And we're gonna start at verse 23, and it reads, and he called them unto him and said unto them in parables, how can Satan cast out Satan? And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. So you really got the heathens against the heathens, Edomites against Edomites, Esau against Esau, you know, Moab against Moab, you know, Amalek against his own people. You know, they don't know what they want to do. Who gonna sit in this seat? Who gonna be in the UN calling this shot? You know, who gonna bring this city down? Who gonna rise up in this city? That's how they get down. You know, Mark 3 and 26. And if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but hath an end. Check that part out. It says, verse 26 one more time. Mark 3 and 26. And if Satan rise up against himself and be divided, he cannot stand, but hath an end. So the Lord already commanded and prophesied and spoke that they have an end. So who cares that they got things set up to where they're going to reduce population? All praise to Yahweh Shem Shah. Who cares that they got things set up where they're going to bring out robots? Hey, we might be affected. You know, we might be well off. Only the Lord knows. But in all be all, they got an end. And that's all that matters. The wicked is going to be cut off. You know, and that's something that we need to be praising the Lord for. You know, regardless if they be reigning and ruling in this time for a day, a month, a year, 9 weeks, 7 weeks, 26 months, or however much time the Lord got for them to be reigning and ruling. I got a precept that come to mind just as I'm speaking it. But the Lord said they're going to be cut off. They're going to be cut short. You know, before I get this next precept, let me pull this real quick. This is Psalms chapter 78. And I'm going to start at verse, let me see. You know, it's a lot of precepts I got to come to mind. Let me get this in Job real quick. Job chapter 20 before I get that. This is the book of Job chapter 20. And I'm going to start at verse 5. Job chapter 20 verse 5. That the triumphing of the wicked is short. So, hey, regardless of what law, what decree they put out there, it's only but for a temporary moment. Because the Lord already prophesied about the wicked perishing through Job, through Job's friends. You know, stop reading the Bible and thinking it's just only a verse that somebody put down. No, it's a prophetic intervention that's coming to pass. You know, Job 20 and 5. That the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite but for a moment. It says but for a moment. Trump is only in that seat for a moment. You know, the Edomites are only ruling for a moment. You know, the Israelites are coming soon. You know, verse 6, Job 20 and 6. Though his excellency mount up to the heavens, and his head reach unto the clouds, yet he shall perish forever like his own dung. They which have seen him shall say, where is he? And they ain't gonna be found no more, man. You know, because it's only gonna be Israelites. You know, stop thinking Europeans was always ruling and reigning. You know, before Genesis 25, there wasn't no such thing as a redneck. You know, a white man, as they call it. It was all dark skins. You know, Jakes, if you can understand, melanated people. So it's gonna come a time they're gonna be like, hey, where them Edomites at? You know. So I believe what I wanted was in Psalm 73 through the Spirit. This is Psalm chapter 73 and verse 18, and it reads, now this is how the Lord view the wicked. You know, stop thinking that the Lord is all love, peaches and cream and happiness. You know, the Lord is about judgment. The Lord is about integrity. The Lord is about doing what he said he was going to do. He ain't your average liar like your Uncle Earl. You know, he's not your average liar like your Aunt Tanisha. You know, said she was going to do something, she didn't come through. You know, I'm going to be at your graduation, boy. Next thing you know, you you just hearing lies. The Lord is not a man that he lie.
Okay.
You know, if he say he gonna do something, he gonna do it. Now this is Psalm chapter 73, verse 18. And it reads, surely thou didst set them in slippery places. Thou casted them down into destruction. So the Lord is putting your Amaleks in a place that they control Def Jam Records right now. You know, Verity Records, you know, the Columbus Music Group, you know, they the ones that tell Chris Brown he could put the album out or not. You know, they the one tell you know, Future he got to make this trap music. You know, but the Lord put them in places where they're gonna be destroyed sooner or later. You know, they don't want to tell LeBron James that he can go to his Nike camp. He can set his Nike camp up in the Chinese, you know, in the summertime. You know, verse 19, Psalm 73 and 19. How are they brought into desolation? As in a moment, they are utterly consumed with terrors. As a dream when one awaketh, so, O Lord, when thou awakest, thou shalt despise their image. So the Lord is going to despise their image, whether or not they trying to bring in robots, bring in AI, artificial intelligence or not. You know, whether or not they trying to kill a lot of immigrants, lock them up, whether or not they trying to frame the Israelites for hate speech or put some false flag out there. Regardless of what it is, hey, the Lord set it all up because he's in control. You know, you got a precept? I'm gonna get this in collages, because hey, regardless of what goes on, hey, everything is really set up for Yahushua. You know, hey, Egypt was set up so the Lord can bring it down. Babylon was set up so the Lord can bring it down. The Persians and the Medes were set up so the Lord can bring it down. The Greeks and the Romans were set up so the Lord can bring it down. And America is set up so the Lord can bring it down. Hey, all this belongs to the Lord.
Okay.
You know, ain't not one thing on the earth right now that the Lord ain't got control of, that he can't take back and rule and reign over. You know, let me get this in Isaiah before I get this in Colossians. Hey, cause stop thinking that, you know, all of this is gonna be going on for longer. Hey, a governor is coming on the earth to rule in righteousness and govern the earth. This is Isaiah chapter 9, and I'm gonna start at verse 6. Isaiah 9 and 6. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders. That's gonna be somebody that bear up the kingdom to rule over it. It ain't gonna be Roy Cooper. It ain't gonna be Joe Biden, Kamala Harris. It ain't gonna be Donald Trump. You know, hey, it's gonna be the Lord and his anointed. 144,000, his kings, his apostles. You know, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace. Check this out. It says, of the increase of his government and peace, there shall be no end. What does that sound like? It sounds like something in Daniel. You know, the kingdom shall be taken. You know, upon the throne of David and upon his kingdom, to order it and to establish it with judgment, with the justice from henceforth, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. So the Lord is going to lead and he's going to rule in due time. Now this is Colossians chapter 1, and I'm going to start at verse 13, and it reads, who had delivered us from the power of darkness and had translated us into the kingdom of his dear Son, in whom we have redemption through his blood, even the forgiveness of sins. So you know, this is talking about the anointed, the Messiah, you know, and this is what's coming to the earth. And the Lord, he's going to be the one that's going to separate the righteous from the wicked, you know, the elect from the non-elect. Verse 14, who is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn of every creature, talking about Christ, Yahushua, for by him were all things created. So by him, all things were created. The wicked was created. The righteous were created. You know, sun, the moon, the stars, you know, the rednecks, you know, who the people call Negroes, you know, for by him were all things created. There are in heaven and there are in earth, visible and invisible, whether they be thrones or dominions. So who's reigning and ruling in this society right now? The elites, you know, Amalek, Edomites, you know. You got Chinese restaurants in your most poor cities. These Chinese restaurants don't get shut down not one time. How is that? But you got your poorest people in those cities. Some of them, sometimes they might not even make money. How they still how they still able to keep these restaurants open? You know, when you got certain Dollar Generals that get shut down. You know, you get certain Burger King shut down in certain spots. But these Chinese spots, they still open. You know, whether they be thrones or dominions or principalities or powers, all things were created by him and for him. So regardless if it's AI, the Lord, it was really set up for the Lord. Regardless if it was robots, it was really set up for the Lord. Why? Because the Lord is going to destroy it. He's going to bring it down. You know, hey, go to 1 Peter. You know, the Lord, matter of fact, I ain't going to quote it. Just read it. Now, this is 1 Peter. So like 2 Peter. This is 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 12. And it reads, looking for and hasting unto the coming of the day of God, wherein the heavens being on fire shall be dissolved, and the elements shall melt with fervent heat. Now this is talking about the Lord coming back. As we just read, it says in Colossians, it says all this was created for the Lord. So when the Lord comes back, it's really going to be time for him to bring all this down, to destroy all this with nuclear missiles, with fire, with brimstone, and some destruction that's going to come from them chariots, you know. So not going to be too long-winded, but I already got it documented. Now, recession. Now you can read, you can look this up on your own. It says, what would happen if we go into a recession? Now you can look this up on the internet, you know, basic, you know, knowledge. It says during a recession, businesses typically cut spending, scale back hiring, and may lay off workers. This leads to job losses, reduced consumer spending, and a general slowdown in economy activity. Interest rates tend to fall as central banks try to support the economy, but borrowing costs for individuals and businesses can still increase. And a lot of this is going to be due to robots being replaced for workers. You know, you might got, instead of somebody flipping a burger, you might got a robot that might flip that burger, you know, which may cause a recession. You know, instead of somebody making those cars, you got robots doing them. And that's already going on right now. You know, at your factory, you already got some automation in that facility. You know, hey, I used to back in 2015, I used to work at a Walmart warehouse, and you know, they was bringing in automation to pick the boxes up, to put certain boxes in certain places. And I believe I seen something like that in Amazon. You know, in the Amazon warehouse, they already got stuff like that. You know, so very soon, you know, your local warehouse is gonna be ran by robots, which is gonna jam up a lot of the society economy. But this place is in bad shape anyways. Because with that being said, I also had some other stuff I wanted to go into. Now we also got sources that we get into, get our end time news and things like that. Now, just the other day, Elon Musk tweeted, it says, this is not Apple, Tesla, or even Nevada. It's the U.S. national debt, which he was emphasizing and showing how United States of America is $36.21 trillion in debt. Now, this is what he tweeted the other day. And he said, scary. You know. Now, this is on X, which was formerly known as Twitter. You know. 36 trillion in debt. You know.
That's a lot of money.
And he tweeted, he said, scary. You know. Which we all praise to the Most High, because this society gonna collapse. You know, this place is finished. Now, like we just stated, that, you know, a lot of this stuff is gonna be due to them reducing physical labor with men and women and bringing in robots. But hey, if you understand the Bible, you know there's prophesied in the scriptures. Now, I wanted to get this in Isaiah. This is Isaiah 19. I'm gonna start at Isaiah 19. Isaiah chapter 19. Got a precept? Isaiah chapter 19, I'm gonna start at verse 1, and it reads, "The burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it." Now, just because it say Egypt, that doesn't necessarily mean it's talking about that ancient Egypt where Israelites was freed from. Even when you go to Revelation, it said their dead bodies shall lie in the streets. Matter of fact, can you get that? I believe that's that precept. Before we started the video, I was meditating on that. I think it's the precept that I was asking you to get for me. Because if you understand, when you go to Revelation, it says their dead bodies shall lie in the streets of Egypt. And there also is a prophecy showing that, you know, in our captivity, they crucified the Lord's name here, you know, took away his image. You know, now they're calling him a white man, Caucasian, you know, Middle Eastern, you know. Got it? Come on, bring it up.
Revelation chapter 11 and verse 8. "And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt."
Which is what?
Which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified.
You see that? So when you read this, you know, it's a understanding as a spiritual prophecy, things that are coming to pass, you know, because a lot of people, they may ask us, or they may ask you as an Israelite, how do you know you're an Israelite? Have you lived there? You know, were you born there? And then they're trying to use that in the gate where you're really not an Israelite. It's spiritually, you know. Stop thinking it's always physical. You know, you can pull your social security card out and show them you was born here. You can pull your ID out and show them that you're a citizen, but it's bigger than that. You know, it's way past that. You know, so like it says here, Isaiah 19 and 1, "The burden of Egypt, behold, the Lord rideth upon a swift cloud, and shall come into Egypt, and the idols of Egypt shall be moved at his presence, and the heart of Egypt shall melt in the midst of it." So the Lord, he's gonna bring this place down. You know, all these idols, all these fake entities, and all these wicked devices, and many things that Babylon the Great is spewing up. I'm gonna go down to verse 15. It says, "Neither shall there be any work for Egypt, which the head or tail, branch or rush may do." So that's showing you that a prophecy is gonna come to pass, that a lot of these workplaces, they're gonna be shut down, you know. And it's also another precept in Isaiah that says, "Don't go down to Egypt for help," you know. So a lot of times you really got a desire to see this destruction come to this place. If you're in the spirit, if you really want the Lord to wreak havoc with this place. Now I want to get now that also links up with Ecclesiastes, you know, because all hell breaking loose and this economy collapsing is due to prophecy, and the Lord is just making one prophecy come past the other. Next thing you know, the dominoes taking place. Next thing you know, all hell is breaking loose. Next thing you know, martial law, Jacob's trouble, World War III, more death, more famine, more destruction, no teachers on the corners, you know, famine of the word coming, you know. Next thing you know, martyrs of the Lord is getting put to death. You know, the Lord's men, they were teaching the Bible. Next thing you know, hey, the word ain't out there no more. The door is closed. The 6th seal here, the 7th seal coming. Next thing you know, the kingdom is established. Hey, all hell is done with, and the kingdom is reigning. The kingdom is on the earth. So, hey, that's how the Bible gets down. That's how the Most High get down. You know. So this is Ecclesiastes. I'm gonna start at 12 and 1. Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and verse 1, and it reads. It says, "Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth." And so this is the understanding of the days of thy youth. You know, when you can still go out and teach the word, if you're in the highways and byways as a man in a congregation, you know, you can go to your grocery stores, You know, you still might be able to find a little stuff here and there. You can still go to the gas station. You can still cash your check. You know, you can pay your bills. This is still the day of the youth. You know, why the evil days come not. So the evil days really ain't came not. It really ain't here yet. You know, you still on the internet. You still can FaceTime certain people. When the days of evil come, you ain't gonna be able to do that. You don't even know if your loved one's gonna be alive. You know, you might not know where your brothers are. You might not know where your wife is if you got a spouse, or if you're a woman, you got a husband. Because when the evil days are really on the earth, you know, on concrete, on grass, on sand, on pavement, you know, you really ain't gonna be able to tell nothing. You know, who's alive, where they are, what the nearest city got stored up, who's running that city, who's doing the most killing on the earth, who's alive, who's not alive, what congregation is still in that city or not. The days of evil, when they really come, it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna be a mystery.
A day like never before.
Yeah. It's gonna be like the book of Eli. You know, why the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. And jumping down, I'm gonna jump down to verse 3. It says, in the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease, because they are few. What does it mean the grinders cease? That's your understanding of the warehouses and things like that. You know, the grinders cease. They are few. You know, and this is due to prophecy. You know, and those that look out of the windows be darkening, because they really ain't gonna be able to tell. You know, because everything is gonna be kind of dark. It's gonna be kind of hard to tell. You know, Ecclesiastes 12:4, and the doors shall be shut in the streets when the sound of the grinding is low. So it ain't gonna be no more warehouses. It ain't gonna be no more hard hats, steel toes, power equipment, forklifts. You know, it's gonna be all hell breaking loose. You know, economy collapse. You know, no jobs, the recession. And he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. So hey, it's gonna be all hell breaking loose. You know, and that's the understanding that we have to have. We have to be vigilant. We have to be able to watch and understand and tune in with the spirit and knowing what's really going on. You know. Now I want to get this in James. You had something you want to pull? Now this is the book of James chapter 4. And I'm gonna start at verse 13. James chapter 4 verse 13. It says, go to now, ye that say today or tomorrow we will go into such a city. So a lot of people, they might got vacation in, you know, they might got some time set up where yeah, I'm gonna take that cruise at the end of the year. You know, I've been holding on this vacation. Hey, you don't know. You know, hey, the economy might collapse by then. You know, you thinking you holding on to them 40 hours of vacation. Hey, you might go to work one day and they might tell you, well, you know, we had to bring in a new system, so we're gonna have to lay you off. You don't know what you're gonna come into. You know, that's what James is saying. It's saying you don't know what tomorrow gonna be like. A lot of people, they think they got that thing figured out. You know, where I'm gonna sell my car next year, I'm gonna use that money. I've been wanting to go on a cruise, you know, so I'm gonna take a leave of absence from work. Hey, you take that leave of absence, you come back, your job gonna be shut down. They're gonna have a big yellow sign out there say it ain't even gonna be the same thing. You know, it ain't gonna say Papa John's warehouse no more. It's gonna say automation intervention. And you're gonna be like, I thought this is where I used to work at. Hey, you might pull up, they might got a big robot standing out there. You know, you trying to figure out where Alex Stewart is. I need to speak to Alex Stewart. He's my supervisor. Hey, your supervisor got fired. You know, Elon Musk done ran up in there and turned that place out. You know, artificial intelligence done turned that place out. So these things right here, you gotta be in the spirit and taking heed and aware, because the Lord is really allowing these prophecies to come before your face. You know, James chapter 4:13. Go to now, ye that say today or tomorrow we will go into such a city and continue there a year and buy and sell and get gain. Yeah, you think them 40 hours of vacation is gonna be there, but hey, your job might get shut down. Verse 14, whereas ye know not what shall be on the morrow, for what is your life? It is even a vapor that appeared for a little time and then vanisheth away. So you don't know. Hey, I don't know, you know. But like it says in Revelation, it says the fearful and unbelieving. We don't fear. We don't fear losing our job. You know, I make sure I say it all the time, and the brothers hear me. You know, hey, so what? You know, you got it, you got it. You don't, you don't. The Lord gonna take care of you. That's the faith you need to have. Don't stress yourself out. You know, David, hey, he said, hey, I've been young, now I'm old. I never seen the seed begging bread. You know.
God, the Lord said that the pillars of the earth are his.
Yeah.
So everything that consists in this world belongs to the Most High, and all we have to do. The Lord said He'll even give the heathen to us for an inheritance.
That's
if
right.
we ask for it. So, you know, like they say in the world, closed mouths don't get fed. So we got to seek the Lord and inquire these things that will sustain our life. Even in Matthew, you know, the Lord in Matthew chapter 6, the Lord said, "Think not on tomorrow."
Kind of bring it out.
You know, through the Spirit. Matthew chapter, and that's really one of my favorite chapters, through the Spirit. How the Lord was going into the things that man thinks about when you shouldn't be thinking about these things, because the Most High is the God above all.
Right.
Matthew chapter 6, and starting at verse, I'm going to start at verse 24. Actually, I'm going to start at verse 25. It says, "Therefore I say unto you, take no thought for your life, what ye shall eat or what ye shall drink, nor yet for your body what ye shall put on. Is not the life more than meat, and the body more than raiment?" Because men often get prideful in their outer appearance rather than what they look like on the inside in the eyes of the Most High. Because even the Most High told through the prophet Samuel, he told Jesse, David's father, the man looks on the outer, but the Most High look on the inner man,
Right.
in the intents of the heart. You know, when they were looking for the king that the Lord was about to anoint of the sons of Jesse. Right, reading on, it says, "Behold the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are ye not much better than they?" Right? None of these animals they eat on a daily basis think about what they're going to go eat. Am I finna go to McDonald's?
Yeah.
Am I going to Mikasita? Or on Trader Joe's?
Right.
What am I going to eat today? Hey, the Lord said, take no thought for these things, man.
Right.
Right? And that's a great amount of faith that you're not even thinking about what I'm finna eat. Right? Because the Lord directs man's steps into doing whatsoever. Hey, man, it's been days, you know, through the Spirit where I'm coming off a fast. My fast is about to end, and right at the last 20 minutes of my fast ending, somebody come up and hand me some fruit, or somebody offer me some food. You know, and that this precept can come to my mind instantly. Hey, don't take no thought for what's coming to you to eat.
Right.
Or what you shall put on to clothe yourself, because the Lord shall provide for you.
That's right.
Whenever you walk in an honest path, you fulfilling the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of your ability, and in the same breath and in the same action, you believe in the Lord will bless you for keeping His commandments. But reading on, it says, I'm gonna jump down. Verse 30, it says, "Wherefore if the Most High shall clothe the grass of the field, which today is and tomorrow is cast into the oven, shall He not much more clothe you, O ye of little faith?" So brothers be having little faith in these last days, man.
Right.
We gotta pray that the Lord balance us with enough faith to sustain us and to endure to the end. Right? Verse 31 says, "Therefore take no thought, saying, what shall we eat, or what shall we drink, or wherewithal shall we be clothed? For after all these things do the Gentiles seek. For your heavenly Father knoweth that ye have need of all these things." Right? And the Gentiles, we learned this mindset from the Gentiles. What am I going to eat today?
Yeah.
Right? That's a base mindset. It's not having faith at all. Not trusting it. That's damn near like the Most High not even there.
Right.
And that's madness, right? Verse 33, the point, it says, but seek ye first the kingdom of Yahweh and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. So we got to put the Most High at the forefront of our mind, and his will at the forefront of our mind, like our forefathers, man. To serving the Lord, it's a terminology that I wanted to use, but it slipped my mind. Without thought, just serving the Lord as it's like been ingrained within our mind,
Right.
like a robot almost.
Right.
Like you don't even think about
You
keeping the
program.
commandments. Yeah, through the water, through the Spirit. That's the Spirit. Programmed to keep the commandments, programmed to be righteous, programmed to hate evil, programmed to have faith, programmed to endure temptation, man.
Right.
That's what we gotta be, and that's the spirit that we gotta be in these last days to inherit eternal life, man.
That's also in Genesis.
Bro, I'm gonna yield on that through the Spirit.
Yeah, I'm gonna get that precept because hey, the Lord wanted us to know good and evil. Let me get that in Genesis real quick. So we knowing as being in this captivity, as it says in 1 Kings, you know, bethinking ourselves in the land where we was carried captive. So the Lord wanted us to bethink ourselves in this society, in this hellhole that we're in, to bethink ourselves and to know good and evil, and to overcome evil with good. Now this is Genesis. Let me see where I wanted to go. This is Genesis chapter 3, and I'm gonna start at Genesis chapter 3, verse 3. It says, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Most High God has said, ye shall not eat of it, neither shall ye touch it, lest ye die. And the serpent said unto the woman, ye shall not surely die. Now the serpent is them wicked philosophies. That's what goes on every day. You know, it's okay that you're a crackhead. You know, Jesus loves everybody. You know, that's that serpent telling you that. You know, that's not true. That's a lie. You know, that's why we have to cast out false doctrines. You know, verse 5, for Most High God doeth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be open, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. So now we know good and evil. Why? Because we're born again. You know, we are a new creature in Yahweh Shah HaMashiach. You know, we've lived our time in the Christian church, serving Buddhists, idols, Islam, Catholicism, in the Christian church. You know, Egyptology. You know, certain brothers and sisters, they went to these universities and they served in these fraternities, in these programs that teaches you nothing but wickedness and evil, and in these books that teaches you about all of these false, you know, gods and all of these Americanized, you know, fantasized things that is not real. But we know Yahweh and his son Yahweh Shah is real, and that's whom we should look to for our power and our healing, you know, and everything that comes forth with salvation. You know, now I wanted to get may have to wind down. I wanted to get this in Revelation. Let me see what this is in Revelation. I wanted to pull this in Revelation. This is Revelation chapter 18. And this is Revelation chapter 18 and verse 21. I'm just get straight to the point. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. Now this is the time period where the Lord is going to destroy this place. Now all of these interventions and all of this stuff that America is trying to come up with, you know, the Lord is going to cast it down. Verse 23, and the voice of harpers and musicians and of pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee, and no craftsman of whatsoever craft he be. So you got a lot of craftsmen here, just like you had a certain goldsmith in the time of Acts that made a whole god, you know, with their what's the word, with their occupation. You know, certain people was making money off of making false gods. So you got a lot of people that they're making money off of these apps. You know, it was one time you had an app on Snapchat that kind of scans face, you know, and then you had another app that that unlocks your phone. You know, you got your Face ID. You know, so AI was in the making from the beginning of time. You know, and when I say the beginning of the time, even back in the 60s, even back in the 70s, even back in the 80s, they've been planning this out. You know, stop thinking that these elites just came up with this last year or the year before that. They've always had a plan to keep an eye on what your nearest so-called Negro, Hispanic, and Native American is doing. Stop thinking that they just came up with this 10 years ago. You know, they got cameras everywhere. They want to see what you're doing because they think they God. You know, they want to keep tabs on you. They got hidden surveillance, hidden microphones, paying attention to all your. Hey, why you think as soon as you go look up something, you go to another app, the other app already got your information. You know, you was on Safari if you got Apple. You was on Google if you got Android, looking up pizza. Next thing you know, you go to Facebook and you see nothing but Domino's and Papa John's. As soon as you go to Instagram, Domino's and Papa John's. Yeah, Little Caesars. You got all type of different algorithms going on. Then you go on YouTube and you see nothing but pizza videos. People making pizza.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and now you trying to figure out how did they know this? They're reading into my mind. They've been doing this the whole time. You just wasn't watching. You just was caught sleeping, lacking.
The digital footprint.
You know. So the Lord said, the craft shall be found any more in thee, and the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more at all in thee. Verse 23, and the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee. Now that candle is all of this sorcery, all of the things that they got planned and they trying to trick people with. You know, they done got some of our sisters, they done tricked them out by their lighting their candle. You know, you're amazed that you can go from Raleigh, North Carolina to China in 12 hours. You're amazed that you can go from Chicago to Egypt in 20 hours. You know, you're amazed that you can get a flight and go to California in such and such hours. That's the sorcery and the light that they really give off. A lot of people are hypnotized by that, you know. But the men and the women and the children of the Lord, they know that all of this was set up so the Most High name and His glory can be increased and running vast on the earth. Because you're not gonna get away from the prophecies. The Lord said, knowledge shall increase in the last days, you know. So everybody's hearing about the truth, you know, whether they accept it or not. You know, Revelation 18:23, and the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. So, hey, it's a lot of deceiving going on. And the elites, they're the ones that got their hands into it. But, hey, the Most High, He's going to bring it down to destruction. You know, got anything?
Nah.
So, hey, all praise to the Most High, Lord willing, you was edified through the spirit and the power of Yahweh Shah. Now, this is Isaiah chapter 26 and verse 3. Isaiah chapter 26 and verse 3. It says, thou wilt keep him in perfect peace, whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusted in thee. So, hey, mate, keep your mind stayed on the Most High. He's going to guide you. He's going to lead you. You know, you got your mind on the right things, regardless of what's going on. You're being balanced. You know, you're not too much over the edge. You're not going over the hump. You know, you're right where you should be. You know, verse 4, Isaiah 26 and 4. Trust ye in the Lord Yahweh forever, for in the Lord Yahweh is everlasting strength. So trust in the Lord. Don't trust in this society. Don't trust in this world. Don't trust in men. Don't trust in women. You know, don't trust in flesh and blood. Trust in the Most High, because He would never fail you through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shah. Fisherman of Zion, Don't count this as a light thing to do. Shabbat Shalom. All praises, glory, honor to Yahweh. In the name of his son, Yahweh Shah. Brother Hosea.
Brother Joel.
All praises to Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Mashiach. Continue to stay in the spirit and continue to forsake the flesh and the cares of this world to the best of your ability. All praises to the Most High Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shah. Shalom.